great pleasure to welcome you to the 16th edition of School of Tomorrow events, Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. The non-profit SOT event series was launched by Beacon House in 2000 to engage global communities in conversations that shape the future of schools and societies. I would like to thank Google for Education, the lead sponsor for SOT 2023, and their partner Tech Valley, and titanium sponsor UBL. Other key sponsors include My Backpack, MK Books, Allied Bank Limited, Habib Bank Limited, Wateen, Interwood, Franklin Covey, and Leader in Me. We also thank our SOT supporters, including Paramount Books and Nestle Pure Life, who have contributed to this year's event. Moving to our housekeeping instructions, please ensure your cell phones are silent. Please use the SOT app to scan the QR code for session Q&A and feedback. Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtags, that is, hashtag Guardians of the Future and hashtag SOT 2023. If you need assistance, our ushers are here to help you. For questions, please either use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the mobile app. The panel discussion will last for about 45 minutes, followed by 15 minutes for question and answers. The next session is an engrossing panel discussion on the topic, Stand Up, Speak Out, Defeating Bullying Together, and the moderator is Ms. Sofia Kasuri. Ms. Sofia Qasim Kasuri is the director of the Early Years, a leading child development center in Lahore, as well as master franchisee for US-based Jimbori Play and Music for both Pakistan and Belgium. Having been involved in early childhood development for the past 17 years, initially as founder and director of the Early Years, and later as a project director of Jimbori Play and Learn, Ms. Sofia Kasuri has paved the way for a better understanding of the importance of early childhood education in Pakistan. As director of Jimbori Play and Learn, she is involved with the implementation and strategic development of the franchise, as well as teacher education and curriculum development. Ms. Kasuri's mission is to create greater awareness of how children's experiences in the first 5 years shape their social, emotional, cognitive, and behavioral frameworks, often for their entire lives. She has received the award for Women of Inspiration as a trendsetter educationist of Pakistan. She has also selected for a Wonder Woman Award by the National Hero Foundation, an organization that recognizes and honors exceptional Pakistani women. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to invite Ms. Sofia Qasim Kasuri on stage.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for being here on our panel, Stand Up, Speak Out, Defeat Bullying Together. I would like to welcome our first speaker, Khatija Bakhtiar. She is the CEO and founder of Teach for Pakistan, an organization addressing educational inequity. It now has 160 fellows, teaching 12,000 plus students in rural areas around Islamabad. She holds a Master of Public Policy from UC Berkeley, is a Fulbright scholar, and has worked with organizations like UN Women. Khatija also contributes to various boards and advisory groups, including National Education Foundation and Teach for All's Network Advisory Committee. Thank you. Next, we have Muriel Summers. Muriel is an award-winning principal teacher, best-selling co-author, and global ambassador for Franklin Covey's Education's Leader in Me. For more than 2 decades, Muriel was at the helm of AB Com's Elementary. The highly diverse and award-winning school carries the honor of being the original Leader in Me school. She presents in international and local educational conferences on topics such as reinventing school leadership from the inside out, inclusive approaches to transforming school culture, leading with the heart of school leadership, and finding your voice as a school leader. William McIntyre is the Senior VP of Franklin Covey Education and International GM. He oversees global initiatives, including a successful program teaching life skills in Japan. Bill has expanded Leader in Me schools to over 3,200 schools worldwide, focusing on transforming education through leadership principles. He has an extensive experience in intercultural communications, worked in publishing and advertising, and is an engaging Franklin Covey program trainer. He holds a master's degree in organizational management. Please welcome William. Next, we have Ms. Rania Amaira. She is the principal of Beacon House AI Khalid School in the UAE. She holds multiple leadership degrees from UK and UAE universities, including a Master's of Education in Leadership and Management with distinction. Rania also obtained a second master's degree in Business Administration with distinction from the University of Bedfordshire. She holds the National Professional Qualification of Headship from University College London, ensuring compliance with UAE licensing requirements. Rania has extensive experience in educational leadership and school management, facilitating improvement and excellence in multiple schools. Thank you so much for being here. And we can begin our discussion. I will ask the questions, and I would like all of you to give your opinions through your experience about what we can do. So when we talk about bullying, previously, bullying was limited to social interactions in school or at family gatherings. But now, because of social media, there's a lot of talk about cyberbullying. So if you can, we can start with Khatija. If you can please talk about what you see the difference between the two is and what we can do to tackle.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sophia. I think many of the same root causes, right? Because I think in trying to address bullying, we first need to understand where does it come from. And when we really look at what is happening around the ecosystem of the child or the adult who is doing the bullying, and the ecosystem of the child that is on the receiving end of that bullying, I think we see that many things stay the same, whether it is in person or in social media. Now, of course, on social media, the bullying, when you can be anonymous, right? It's so much easier to say the even nastier thing that was coming to mind, but you held back because of some bound, some basic social decency that holds you, and that kind of also goes away. But the way that I've come to understand this, working with kids over the last so many years, is ultimately it comes down to power. And the person who is doing the bullying is often trying to gain some power over others who they feel like they can, right? And I think that's at the root of a lot of the bullying that we see. And that, to me, leads to the question of, if we're really going to address bullying and get to a place where we can be more empathetic and create safer spaces, whether they're in schools, whether they're in homes, or whether they're on social media, then we really have to get to the root cause of why are our kids feeling so powerless? What is really happening? And how can we help all our children develop healthier forms of communicating whatever pain or frustration they may be dealing with and they may be coping with?
Okay, so what for you is the solution?
Wow, that's a really big question.
When children feel powerless, what is it that we as educators or as parents, what is the role that we should be playing?
I think it is the very, very difficult thing that educators have to do, and I think it also becomes very difficult for parents, even though this is your child, to really be able to stop whatever is coming up for ourselves when a child is acting out, stop our own anger and just ask what may be happening here. Why is this child behaving so poorly? And whether that is anger directed at an adult, but more often than not, that anger is directed at somebody who that child thinks is even less powerful than that child is feeling in the moment, right? So I think being able to pause our internal dialogue and being able to be with our children in those moments, right, I think is going to be key to try and prevent bullying. I think the second thing that's really, really important is really being able to unpack in conversation with all of our kids, what are our identities? What are the many identities that we walk into a school or a classroom with, right? When we're going to engage with students who may be very different from us. These are social identities, my religion, my ethnicity, my beliefs, my gender, but also personal identities. What are the kind of clothes that I wear, right? Maybe I have a disability or not, right? And I think really being able to unpack that with kids and being able to help them feel safe about their identities, that's, I think, key to ensuring that they then will channel that kindness outwards towards other kids who may be very different from them. So I think it starts there.
Okay. Muriel?
Well, I would so agree with what Khadijah has said. I would also add to what she said by saying that getting to the root cause of why a child is misbehaving or a child is bullying is really at the very root of what we need to do. As a principal for over 43 years, I know firsthand that when children are hurting, they tend to want to hurt others. And so helping the child who is hurting, getting to the root cause of what is going on, and getting them the help and support that they need. Often children react because of something that is hurting within inside of them. And so addressing that, I think, is critical to addressing the whole need behind bullying.
So when a child is bullying, a child is being bullied. So we are talking about addressing the root cause of the child who is being the bully, but what about the child who's taking it?
Yeah.
What are the possible root causes there?
You know, I think as educators, we need to really focus on the culture that we're creating in our school. First of all, a culture of trust, a culture of love, a culture of knowing what is right versus what is wrong. And I think we have to point those things out to our children. This is not how we treat one another. We were having a conversation earlier, and we talked about when you do create a culture like this, there will be other children who will stand up for those who are being bullied. There will be children who will have the courage to say to another student, this is not right. Please don't do this. And in my 43 years, I have seen that when we focus on building a culture that says, no, this is not right, this is not how we treat one another, then you don't have it as much. And so I would say our role is to create this culture of just caring for one another and knowing the difference between right and wrong. And children need a toolkit, if you will, to help navigate, to know that's not right, or to know that they need to have the courage to stand up for someone else when they see that happening.
Thank you. William.
Yeah, I would love to build on something Muriel just said. Recall a partial quote from the poet Walt Whitman, and he said, "A child went forth every day, and what he saw, he became." And so I think we need to understand, what are these children who are bullying and being bullying, what are they seeing? And this goes back to what is happening in their homes and their families. As Muriel, you just kind of alluded to, a bully is usually being bullied by someone else. And often that bullying may be coming from parents or other children or siblings or somewhere. So in the schools that we work with around the world, we really focus on building that culture that Muriel talked about, but also building that relationship with parents. Muriel tells a story in A.B. Combs, and I don't know if you got to see her session, but it was wonderful. But she required every one of her teachers to visit with every family, is that right, during the year. And so the teacher of these students will know the family situation, know the background, understand is there family issues going on. This will allow the teacher to understand better how to deal with a student either being bullied or doing the bullying. And so creating this culture, this communication and partnership with parents, I think is crucial in our schools today. Yeah.
Wonderful. Rania.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Thank you first, Sophia, for giving me this chance to be part of this lovely panel. It's a very insightful kind of discussion we're having here because it's a major problem that we are facing on a regular basis. I believe that bullying is bullying, regardless the platform, regardless the approach. Either it's cyberbullying or the face-to-face that our children they are facing on their regular school days or as a parent in their social life. Unfortunately, the impact that it leaves on the victim is the same. Most of the time, they are demoralized, they are unhappy, sad. It impacts their sleeping habits, maybe impacts their social relationship with their other peers, and all of the other consequences that's related to this. What makes the cyberbullying a little bit more damaging is what exactly Khadija mentioned, is that it is the anonymous, the ambiguity. You're not very sure who you are talking to. That kind of causes the maybe the consequences to be taken by the parents or the teachers in schools more harder at a certain point. The other main challenge here is that cyberbullying, it includes continuity sometimes. You don't know who exactly saw the post or the message that have been abusing the victim. You're not sure if you, after deleting this message, if there was a chance to pop up again and be shown to other people. If someone just screenshot, took a screenshot for that specific message, it might be go viral in the social media. But I like what also my other panelists mentioned here. When we are dealing with any problem, we really need to look into the roots, the main causes, because every cause will have an effect. The impact comes from the main causes. And I was sharing earlier this early morning with you, Sophia, that sometimes it is more than just a social or emotional type of problems that these children they have. Most of the time, the bully students, they are the one who have anger management issues. They are impulsive. They are reactive. They react without thinking. And interestingly, these might be symptoms of specific disabilities. Why I'm saying that? Because I face that as a school principal sometimes. And in specific, I'm not a psychologist here, but in specific, these are kind of common traits with the ADHD, for instance. So that child might needs more than a social mentoring or coaching, might need some medical kind of a treatment that might impact his behavior, and which happened in many cases in a school context. In addition, definitely to other reasons that might come from house or the relationship with the family that we need to dig into in order to figure out where the problem is so we can provide a solution on the long run.
So, taking from that, if we talk about early intervention, for example, how important is it for parents and educators? Are there any common characteristics between a bully or a child who's being bullied that can be identified earlier? There are certain personality traits, for example, that we as educators can see that this child has the potential of being a bully or being bullied. So we talk about in early childhood especially about how confidence building is very, very important in the first 5 years of a child, and how we have to build up on that, and a happy child is a happy adult. Now, again, talking about those characteristics, not just about confidence, but also about understanding personalities of different children and trying to identify at an earlier stage what we can do to make them kinder, to make them more empathetic. What are the things we can do, and what are the different characteristics in a child? Like you said, a lot of times if they have anger management issues, they're frustrated because they might have ADHD and stuff. So what are the commonalities for these children? Are there any?
Go ahead, Miro.
You know, I think we just have to know our students so well that when we notice certain behaviors, our radar goes up. Yes, there are children that are impulsive, and we have to redirect that behavior. They may have, as Rania said, they may have a disability, and so we just need to know our children's stories. We need to know their backgrounds. The characteristics, I think, is hurt, sadness, anger, and children respond when a need is not being met. And I look for that. I look when a child is exhibiting those behaviors, what need is not being addressed, and then attempt to address that need. So to categorize these are bullying behaviors, we know what they are. And often it just requires a conversation with the student to tell them that's not what you should be doing. And really help the child to learn empathy by saying, when you said this is how you made this person feel. And often, I would have the two children dialogue together if it was the first time that this had ever happened. But what I've come to realize, and my experience tells me, that often it's just redirecting a child once, and the behavior extinguishes itself. However, if it continues, you know that there is a deeper cause that needs to be addressed. Okay. So that would be my goal, to recognize when it's happening and try to extinguish it as soon as possible and get the child the help they need.
Yeah, I would add, in what we've done in the Leader in Me schools, the teachers communicate students' worth and potential so clearly they're inspired to see it in themselves. And this issue of confidence is huge. I think children who lack confidence, they're the loner. Teachers can sense that and see that, and those are the students that are often targeted for bullying. So what I think we ought to be doing, we're doing in a lot of schools, is help that child break out of that. Help them, give them an opportunity to build their confidence. You know, we believe in giving every child in the school a leadership role and let them show what they can do. And so a teacher needs to help the student discover their gifts and talents and give them opportunities to use it. And that would help them gain more confidence, which then I think could help the potential victims of bullying.
And could I add to that there's research that shows that the number one thing that children of all ages that are able to articulate this, the number one thing they need and want is to feel that they belong. And to add to what Bill just said, when they have a role and responsibility and a reason to wake up every morning to go to school, we're halfway there. But the sense of belonging, and often children who bully do not feel they belong.
I like what the other day when we were discussing this, Muriel, you told me that everyone has a second chance. And specifically, I want to maybe use this phrase when we're dealing with the bullies, because most of the time we are very empathetic towards the victimized. However, at the end we're dealing, especially at the lower ages, we're dealing with children who are going through a lot of emotional, social, cognitive changes while they are growing, maybe hormonal as well at a certain point. So that part should always be there as parents, as educators, that this can be fixed, this can be tackled the proper way, and there's always a second chance for improvement.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I just want to add a perspective. So the children we work with, we're working with government schools, and about 95% of our school-going population is going to either a government school or a low-cost private school or a non-profit school. This is the bottom of the pyramid. And what is happening there? And I think your question is so interesting in that context, Sophia, because what it made me think was being able to identify individual behaviors. I mean, what's needed as a precursor to that is the kind of whole school culture that we were talking about earlier. And the environments that we're dealing with, I think the vast majority of our students are being treated so poorly in our education systems, right? In our mass education systems, It strips away humanity and dignity from the child who is being bullied, but also the bully themselves, right? I have this vivid memory of walking into a boys' school and walking by classroom after classroom, watching a teacher hit children because a boy came into the school with a ponytail, and teachers bullying other teachers, and those things become so pervasive as part of the school culture. But I think the idea of student leadership is a key one, because what we've seen, how do you create dramatic change in those instances? It's no longer just the adults whose leadership and wisdom one can rely on to take a culture like that and transform it. You have to go to the kids. It has to start with the kids almost. And that's what we've seen in a number of our students, is what's happening when children within classrooms and across classrooms are engaging in dialogue and being able to be honest about the pain that all of them have experienced, right? Everybody can relate to both experiencing and inflicting pain on another. And that is what joins them in empathy. And then being able to, then pushing back on their school management and saying, this culture is no longer acceptable. And going from bullying doesn't work for us to corporal punishment doesn't work for us, right? And so I think that's the thing that gives me a lot of hope, is how much potential there is in our kids for them to rise and change this for themselves.
So we were talking about this earlier, and we were all a little confused about the millennials and the boomers and the Gen Z and what begins when, so please excuse us if I'm wrong. But taking from what you said, Khatija, as parents, a lot of what we talk to our children about, whether it's our students or our own children, comes from experiences we've had which we thought were right or wrong with us. And that's how we teach our children. But like you said, certain things don't work for us anymore. Bullying doesn't work for us as a parent or for my child. Corporal punishment doesn't work for us anymore. But there is still a culture of excusing adult behavior. If a teacher says something or behaves a certain way, and the child will complain, and we will say to the children, it's a school culture, or teachers do this, and it's absolutely okay. What is the role of the parent? Muriel, you talked earlier about partnership between the parent and educator. How important is it that should parents be standing up for their child, or should they be partnering with the school in making the environment better for the children? What is the difference, if there is one?
Yeah, I mean, and I think if we go back to the original understanding that a lot of these bullying behaviors come from the ecosystem that a child is in, and if we take that as a point of acceptance as a starting point, then that ecosystem doesn't, of course, end at the school. The parents and the culture that they see in their homes and what they experience in their homes, and how adults treat each other and the kids is just as important. So I think, in my mind, there's absolutely no doubt. Parents have to enter this conversation as partners with educators, and that's regardless of socioeconomic background, right? Regardless of the strata of school that we're talking about.
Okay.
I think the question is, how do you diffuse that situation? Because most parents, if their child is accused of being a bully, they're going to come in and they're going to defend their child. That's the natural reaction. Not the proper reaction, but the natural reaction. And so how can we help teachers understand how to talk to the parents, right? To be able to diffuse a potential, confrontation with the parents and help the parent understand that we're partners.
And Bill, that is a great point. And it was years before I learned this. And I wish I could go back and have a do-over. But I learned from our work that people respond out of two emotions. We respond out of fear, and we respond out of love. And so it's our role as educators to take the high road, if you will, when a parent comes and is somewhat confrontational, to just understand that paradigm of they're afraid of something, they're afraid that they don't know how perhaps to handle the news you've just given them, or they love something so deeply that they also don't know how to articulate what to do. So I think it's our responsibility, just as Bill said, to create a culture where we're educating every person in our building that communicates with the parent to know that understanding of fear and love, and to also have the skill set to diffuse a difficult situation, to get to the root cause of what's really going on. Because if a child is bullying, more than likely they've seen someone else bully. And unfortunately, it might be someone in their family that's doing that. So the educating the whole family, the whole child, the family, I think is the key to solving a lot of our problems that we have in education.
Okay.
I think it also has to do that we parents are human beings. And it's a learning curve for all of us. We're learning with our children, and we're developing as they are growing, we are growing. And I'm going to quote again Simon Sinek. We talked about it just a couple of hours before while we were discussing this session. I was watching a very nice video for Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek is an author who writes in leadership. And he mentioned a very interesting statement about the major characteristics of millennial groups, speaking about millennials. And he identified millennial generation, any person was born after 1984. Please raise your hand if you are born after 1984.
In and or?
In. Okay, here we go. So, okay, I hopefully that's genuine, guys, but this is exactly what he was saying about this specific generation. He mentioned this generation, ironically, he was talking about it from a business perspective, by the way. He said, these people are the most hard people to manage.
You are.
This was a trick question.
Let me tell you why. He said that these people are the most hard people to manage because, number one, they are anti-social people. This is due to many circumstances happened in their lives due to the social media that came up and, being connected to gadgets and all of these things. They are the least people who can manage stress, by the way. He also mentioned that. They cannot manage stress. He also mentioned a very interesting statement about avoiding confrontations. And ironically, he said that these people, they would rather go to their bosses, resign from the job, rather than going and confronting their boss and telling him that, oh, I'm unhappy with the salary that you're giving me or the circumstances of the job. So this is what, as educators, principals, people on ground, dealing with your children, we are also dealing with this type of parents on ground. So you can imagine what we are going through. We want to, in a way or another, educate you about, what are we trying to educate our children about? Thank you.
So, taking from what you said, that they're afraid of confrontation, they're not talking about what bothers them, what the root cause is. That's a very common pattern in children as well, right? Children often, when they are being bullied, are not telling anyone about it, especially when it comes to cyberbullying, because a lot of the times you're not able to identify who the bully is. They can do it under cover, they can do it with anonymity. How are we as educators, because often the child who's being bullied, even cyberbullying, is coming from a lot of the core group that might actually be in school. How are we supposed to identify that behavior and change it? How are we supposed to help that child?
Sorry, which child do you mean? The
child who's being bullied online, and we as educators cannot identify who the bully is. How do we do that?
Yeah, I think this is such a hard question. And I think just also a huge shout out to all the school-based educators and teachers on the panel and in the room, because it's such a difficult job. I think ultimately, this draws on a lot of research and what we've learned over the years about how to help children cope with any kinds of abuse, physical, emotional, sexual, or violence that's being done against them. I use those principles to say, I think it's about really whole child development, right? That's why this approach that's almost become, an overused term in some ways, but that's why it matters so much. If we invest in the right ways and early on in this child's sense of self, in their ability to be confident, in their ability to know how they're feeling and be able to express it, in their ability to be able to think critically, and in their confidence that when you go and talk to an adult, right, whether that's a parent or an educator, there is safety for you and responsiveness for you. If we do that, then I think we can worry less about having to identify what is happening with a particular child, because that child is then more able to protect and defend themselves and stand up for themselves, because we will not be able to be with them all the time, right? No matter how much we want to helicopter as parents or educators, we can't. And so that would be my answer, but of course I would defer to the very knowledgeable panelists.
I think also it has to do, especially if we're talking about cyberbullying, it has to do about raising the awareness when it comes dealing with the social media and all of these digital platforms. For a fact, we know that all of these platforms, they have a specific guidance, social guidance, for parents even to ask some specific questions if they want to know how to deal with the safety related issues while using this platform. There are also some kind of a reporting system. We need to teach our children whenever they come across something like bullying, abusing online, how to report it to the provider of the service. Unblocking, unfriending, that we always have that kind of like, just to stay away and make sure that you're not communicate to strangers online. I believe these type of communications are very important. Parents must do that. And this also, Sophia, you've been saying that unfortunately most of us, we maybe avoid, because sometimes the regulations and that safety tips things, it's kind of a very lengthy. We just go through it and we tick accept and let it go. Maybe we need to take care about all of these things more and discuss these online safety things with our students and with our children.
I think there certainly could be more done as educators to possibly even work with the parents again, in helping the parents to understand the impact of social media and how children are using it, and also talking to the children, letting them know that if this happens to you, it's okay to come and talk to us. I mean, we just need to be open with our children, I think, and I think in this whole discussion as well, I remember a quote that Sean mentioned in his presentation today. For 1,000 people hacking at the leaves, only one is hitting the roots. And we need to focus on the roots in our school. What is creating that culture, as you were saying? And if you can create a positive culture where kids want to go to school, they care about each other, they think win-win, I think bullying will go down. But if it happens, they will, as Muriel said, they will defend each other. So I think it really comes down to how do we focus on educators again, I know we've repeated this, of creating that culture in the school. One last thing quickly. Our family sends little videos to each other that they see online and we watch them. I just happened to get one yesterday and I was watching it. And it was a video of a mother pushing a baby carriage, and the mother had fell down and the carriage rolled away and she couldn't get up. And somebody had to come and save the baby. And the comments on that, I mean, it wasn't supposed to be a funny video, but the comments on it were criticizing the mother because she was overweight and she couldn't get up. And I thought, there should be protections in there on that social media platform to prevent that, or when that is flagged, right? And our kids are seeing this, and people are saying these things to our children online. And so I think there's a lot more that social media could do to put protections in, that when those kind of comments are made, it's flagged. But I think education, kids need to know what to do when it happens. And I think we just need to talk to them, because they're really smart. Kids are smarter than we think, and they're more mature than we think. And they need to know that we trust them as adults and they can talk to us.
To add to that, being proactive and having conversations before any of this ensues is so critical. Giving examples of what is not correct versus what is a correct way to respond. the systems instructors we can put in our schools are opportunities to have conversations about these things with our students. I think we get so caught up in the thick of thin things in education. We have to give attention to this. We have to allow time to have these conversations so that when it does occur, the child can reflect back on, oh, I remember that this was shared, or an example of this was shared, and that's not the right thing to do, or this is the right thing to do in that situation. So creating a system, we have morning meetings. We devote the first 30 minutes of every day just bringing the children around us to talk about certain issues. And I have found that just that 30-minute investment every day creates a climate of love and trust and empathy and understanding. Because just as the example Bill gave, if a child sees their parent laughing about what was posted, then they're going to think that's okay. We have to teach them that is not okay, and this is why it isn't okay.
I'm sorry, one last comment to that. And Sean talked about the most important thing that predicts a successful school, even academically, is the relationship between the teachers in the school, that culture of the teachers. And so as educators, we need to make sure that what we're doing is not, incorrect as well. We need to model the exact behavior we expect from our students. And sometimes, as you mentioned, Sophia, as adults, adults do it, and it's okay, we laugh it off, but we expect the kids not to do it. Frankly, that's hypocritical. So
sometimes I feel that we as educators, there's a lot expected from us. But in my learning, parents are the first teachers of their children. I think a lot of students do look up their teachers as role models, but they look up to their parents a lot more than they would to any educator. So like you said, Muriel, if a parent is sending that video and laughing about it, then the children don't know what is right from wrong. Mm-hmm. And when we send videos like this, is it teaching us to be more insensitive to a situation, or is it giving us a platform to voice our opinion? How does it work? Again, is it only important to give the first 30 minutes of every day to a child as an educator, or is it also important for us as educators to bring in the parents, keep that communication going about maybe teaching them these things as well, because we all are told parenting comes naturally, but we all learn a lot from the first child, right? And with the next one it gets slightly easier, and with the next one. But how hard or easy is it for parents to become a part of that culture in school?
I think, allow me here maybe to comment, the hardest thing in managing any organization is to change the culture. Because culture has to do with values, it has to do with the soft skills, things that are intangible. It's not as easy as 1 + 1 = 2, but it is about specific, behavior, specific approach of speaking, specific values that we are trying to instill in our students. And maybe I talked about this in a different platform previously. We do it either intentionally or sometimes unintentionally, but it becomes our norms. It becomes the routine, the regular things that we are doing. And this is very important for the parents to do the same thing. I'm wearing both hats. I'm a mother and a school principal. So as an educator, I'm facing my students and dealing with regular kind of discussion about that. But as a mother, I feel like I'm like a parrot sometimes, and my child gets very upset. Mama, you told me this before. Can you stop telling me? And I keep repeating the same thing over and over because we don't want to go to any type of abusive approaches. We're human. We're teaching our children to communicate. No matter how much time we need to repeat, we will keep repeating it because we are mothers and we care about our students and we want them to reach the point that you don't want me to stop, then do it, please. That should be like,
You know, one thing that we discovered with the Leader in Me schools around the world that we work with is we can create a good culture in the school over time, and we build this, and the students are using the language of proactivity and the 7 Habits language. They go home, there's a totally different environment. And so what we did early on in our interventions was we allowed the schools to hold 7 Habits training sessions for the parents, so that there is a common language when they go home and when they're at school. And we found this to be extremely powerful in helping, and it helps families who may be struggling as well. Early on, we would have children go home to their parents and say, "Mommy, you're not being proactive." You know, and the parents would come to the school and say, "What are you teaching my kid?" You know, and so this cooperation between parents and the school and training them, it's a benefit for the family. And so a family would say, "I'm glad my children go to your school because you're investing in our family as well," and it's extremely powerful.
You know, every parent wants to hear that they're a good parent. And I think seeking first to understand that often for many of our parents, school was not a great experience for them. And so for us to invite them to come to school when it has such a bad memory for them takes us retraining and building trust with our families. You know, I've watched over the years that the moment I tell a parent, whether I feel, and I'm not trying to be disingenuous, but whether I feel they're a good parent in the moment or not, I'm going to tell them that they are. And I'm going to give a specific, genuine reason why I think they're a great parent. Because the most important thing we can do is to build that trusting relationship with our families so that they see us, and Rania had talked about this earlier today, that they see us as partners, that we're not against them, that we are there together as one unit to help their children succeed.
And I think it's such a lovely point that Muriel is making right now, and such a powerful one. And the parents that we're working with, they're parents from low-income communities, often not very educated themselves, but they care about their kids. And schools don't make them feel like that. Schools make them feel like they are less than, they don't know, they need to be given awareness, and not as equal partners who are welcome to play a role in their kids' education. And every time we've seen a teacher play a different kind of role, I've seen parents stop sending their kids to work and start sending them to school instead, not pull their girls out of school after 8th grade, continue to send. And so they do all of these things, and starting to change the culture in their own homes is something that they're very, very willing to get on board with. And then one last thing I'll say very quickly. I don't know if it's Rania. Rania's comment has given me an existential crisis about my age now. So perhaps it's that, or perhaps it's because I know my niece is in the audience. But the one thing that Teach for Pakistan has taught me, when we don't know what the answer is, and I think this, right, we're talking, of course, there's lots of great insights that are coming up, but we don't, as the adults in the room, really know what the answer is. Talk to the children and talk to the young people. Because in many ways, I feel like, yes, thank you. I'll stop for that. Yes, thank you. That's okay. For young people and for kids, I don't think we listen to them enough. In some ways, I realize I have to translate from the real world to digital space, because that didn't happen until I was in my late teens. But for a lot of the younger people, they know how to navigate this space 10 times better than me, right? So I wish we'd be able to involve them in these conversations, not here, I mean, but at like school level all the time, and say, how do you think we should solve for this? I think they'll have very, very good ideas.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Before we move to the question and answers very quickly, we've been talking a lot about AI during this conference. I wanted your opinion on whether you guys think AI would play an important role in the future in tackling bullying, or maybe help in counseling, where maybe affordability is an issue, and they cannot go to a counselor and they have an online option. Do you guys see a future in working with AI?
Well, I believe there's always a chance You can't say that. With all of the booming in technology that is happening, I could see things more even advanced happening. In what context exactly, no one have the answer for that. But maybe I told you also about this. I know for a fact in a medical level, a friend of mine, he's working with a specific artificial intelligence type of a platform that they have just created recently in Dubai. And the platform is mainly working on the diagnosis. Specific question that AI system is asking the patient when he comes to the hospital, and by finding a specific maybe keywords, specific answers, lead to a specific diagnosis that the application can immediately tell the patient that this is most probably you are between this option or that option. So having said that, it might be like at a certain point we can have a specific maybe avatar doing some kind of like a counseling for our students. Although I would always question the emotional part, because that has something to do with the human. No matter how much support I'm giving you through an online approach, that human part, if it's not there, it wouldn't be that genuine. I mean, the face expression that we have, my voice tone, the comments in between that we do, it's not just a blunt, abstract comment that we're going to give to the person. That made it maybe a little bit challenging, but let's live and see. Why not?
I'm a boomer, okay, a baby boomer, so I don't even know what AI is. I'm joking. I do. But what if, I don't know if the avatar, as you mentioned, Rania, that it doesn't have that human component, but it is very intelligent. But what if through generative AI, they could identify when there are posts or comments that are bullying, and there was an automatic message where parents could have if their kids are on a certain platform, that a message would go to the parents that their children are receiving these kind of comments. Now, now somebody out there who is a programmer and a genius, you don't have to pay me any royalty, but make that happen, all right? But I think something like that is very realistic, yes. where we could use the artificial intelligence to protect and help our children, or refer it to the parents, the school, the teacher, whatever it is. Yeah.
I would agree with everything that has been said, and as someone who is I don't even know what generation I'm in, but at 67 years
boomer.
old, this is all a little bit new to me, but I'm excited about it. I'm excited that the technology could perhaps provide an avenue for a lonely child to just be engaged in a conversation. Often, children are just looking for someone to talk with. Do we need to monitor that? Absolutely we do. But I think if we can create an avatar that will make a child feel loved, and I've seen that over the airways. I've seen it. I'm just going to say it. I felt it from your mother-in-law on the first day. I felt this from. We can figure out how to make a child feel loved, whether it's that human touch or whether it's something through technology, that they're cared for, that they matter, that they belong.
Thank you.
I'll keep it short because I feel bad for people holding up the time sign. I can see them in the corner of my eye. I think like any other technology, AI will work for the bottom of the pyramid if we make it. And just like EdTech has not proven that yet, in my opinion. And so I think it depends all on what we, as the human beings behind the AI, are willing to invest in. So, yeah.
Thank you. Do we have time for question answers? Yeah? Okay, the first question, how can the application of 7 habits and Leader in Me principles assist in addressing the cyberbullying challenges that adolescents encounter?
Maybe that goes to Muriel. That's yours.
That's one of ours.
Well, it's the toolkit. The 7 habits are the toolkit. Be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first, think win-win. I think that's what we do, is give them the toolkit to help them decide how to address. I don't mean to sound cliche-ish or anything like that, but when you create a culture where children feel loved, this often doesn't happen. It's a preventive measure, if you will, to give children an opportunity to pause and think before they act. And I think that's the most powerful gift that we can give our children, is to teach them to the stimulus and response, to stop and think before they act. And so, I could go on and on about this. I just say love them. Love them. Just love them.
In this era of abundant information, what essential principles of digital ethics should schools incorporate into their curriculum to protect our children from bullying?
I think we talked about that during the panel discussion. We talked about the major values, the ethical values. We talked about teaching the students how to use these specific apps and social media, and how to take a stand and go to a trustworthy person and explain to that person whatever they're facing. Know how to stop bully when it happens, and all of the other things that we have discussed. I believe it applies in that question.
How to deal with a person who has developed the behavior of misbehaving in any difficult situation? Khatija, you want to try to take that one?
I was thinking if we answered this question, we would solve 50% of the problems in this room. I think we talked about that a lot also. I think the answer is in, and I think we've been talking about love and creating safe space, and I think sometimes it does need to be said that we do need to destigmatize mental health. And seeking mental health from trained professionals, because sometimes it's beyond what parents or teachers or other peers can do for kids. So yeah, I think.
I would just add, I think this comes back to the paradigms that teachers have regarding their students. And a misbehaving student, we cannot label them as being a problem child. We need to see their worth and potential. What are they good at? Why is this happening? I had a teacher that he gave me an assignment, and I totally made a mockery of it. I turned in this paper, and I thought I was going to get in trouble. And instead, he embraced me, he accepted the assignment, he laughed with me, and he became my favorite teacher. And he saw something in me that I don't think I saw in myself at that time. I was 13 years old. And I stopped misbehaving because he believed in me. And as teachers, we need to believe in our students. And so the misbehaving students are sometimes the best students. I mean, I don't think more are better than others, but
absolutely,
we need to love them. Yeah.
Absolutely. How, as an educationist, should I motivate positive and healthy relationships with parents?
Mainly by opening the channels of communication with parents. We need to make sure that there is an open door policy for parents to come to school and discuss any problems they have with their children. Another thing is to open the channel directly with the teacher. No one knows about the child more than the teacher. Sometimes parents come to me and they start from the school principal and, okay, this happened with my child and what should be like the consequences of this and that. And I keep telling the parents, whenever you come up with any concern about your children, make sure to go to the teacher first. She or he is spending more time with your child in the class. So they know your child better than me. You come to me, I'll go and ask the same question to the teacher and investigate and take it from up the ladder from there. The other thing, we want to make sure also that with this open communication, by time it will lead to some kind of like a trust in relationship. Parents, they need to trust us at a certain point that we are at the side of their children. The teacher has no intentions to, be on the side of this student or the side of the other students. Simply, she doesn't know them. They all come in the class equally with the same, information about them, and the background, she's very, very unaware where they are coming from. So teachers trying their best in the class, and the leaders trying their best in order to make sure that the children, they have that healthy cognitive ability, healthy emotional and social ability, which will be hopefully reflecting on their lives later on.
Thank you. I believe that's time. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Khatija, Muriel, William, and Rania.
Thank you.
And I hope to continue this conversation forward.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia.